Gaza War Day 365, Lebanon War Day 20. A year. It's a year. It's been a year, and it will go on probably for more years. Um, Nasrallah, in his last speech, he intimated that. He said maybe we have. He said something like, we have between us the days and the nights, maybe the years, maybe the months and the years, and I have two short things that I want to talk to you guys about tonight. While I can here, I heard that Rachel Blevins's YouTube channel got taken down with no warning. So you guys look for me on Substack. If this channel disappears, I do have a Substack where I write, but Rachel said that there's a in her on her X account. She said that she posts videos on her Substack. So if they have that ability, that's probably where I'll migrate. It's the easiest thing for me since I'm already on there. But while I'm still here, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. And one is the military situation on the front in Lebanon, and the other is the imminent attack by Israel on Iran and the inevitable follow on of Iran attacking Israel again. So let's talk about Lebanon first. And I've been looking at some topography because for me, there has been a mystery of why can Israel not take, why do they seem unable to get past this choke point? So we have been hearing for since the Israelis began their ground operations in Lebanon of fighting in these two places, Edessa or Marjayun and Yarun, Marun al Ras, and Aitarun, this area down here. Edessa is across from Metula, which is a major base you've been constantly hearing about. Metula getting hit. Every report by Hezbollah for the past year that you've been seeing has included Metula getting hit by rockets, missiles, drones, etc. Metula is here. So you can see the border's kind of complicated here, but Metula is right there, and Kiryat Shmona is right there. And so these are the areas where Israeli troops are getting ready. They're mustering, they're getting ready to attack, and then they're getting rocketed, they're getting hit as they're mustering. So that's one problem that they're having. And the other problem is in Edessa, they've been ambushed multiple times. And in Marun, Yarun, Aitarun, especially Marun al Ras, they go in and they get this is the border, okay? And they get this far. Marun al Ras is a hilltop, and they get some ways in, and then they end up retreating after taking a lot of casualties. So what is happening here? So when you zoom in, and this is what I've been trying to figure out, when you zoom in, you can kind of see, I'm looking for the contour, and it's basically like at the top of the hill, and the community looks like it's at the top of the hill. And it appears to be around 800 meters. So there's an 800-meter contour line here, and the rest, I guess, it's a little higher. So you're coming down the hill. I've never been to this part of the world. Basically, I was in the West Bank, Gaza, a little bit inside so-called 48 Israel or 48 Palestine, but never been to Lebanon. So I don't know. Um, what it looks like from the ground here, but you can tell that this is a hill, and Israel wants to take this hill before they go on to the next hills. And the nature of the terrain here seems to be that a lot of Lebanon on the border kind of looks down on Israel. So they have the high ground. And it's interesting too, because if you look at the satellite, um, Israel's a lot greener. Like across the Israeli border, it's a lot greener, and the mountains here are a little less green. Now, the situation, no, I'll get to the coast in a second. What I wanted to show you though was basically this, that um, there's this point where they seem to really want to go in this way. And there is a road. This is the road from Yarun. Uh, it goes up to Bint Jbeil. In 2006, Bint Jbeil was the big battle that Israel was trying to take Bint Jbeil and didn't quite manage to take Bint Jbeil. So they also didn't get too far in 2006. I guess they got past Marun al-Ras only just, and there was a big fight in Bint Jbeil. So it seems like Hezbollah is contesting because I thought they would have gone in by now. Now, Israel hasn't gone in a really big way yet. What they've done is they've tried to infiltrate special forces, groups of 30, groups of 20, and they do big airstrikes, shelling. They're answered by rockets and missiles from the other side, so it's not quite as one-sided in terms of the shelling. It's disproportionate, but when they do come to infiltrate, they're ambushed every time so far. And so Hezbollah is making it a point to not let them get here, to get set up here. But there's an awful lot more of Lebanon once you get past um, Marun al-Ras. So that's interesting. And I I have to tell you guys, I think Israel will, like I find it extremely surprising that Israel hasn't passed this point yet. And I assumed that they absolutely would have passed this point, and that when they do, if and when they do, it won't be a sign that Hezbollah is losing the war. It'll be the nature of a guerrilla war, that the big invading army is able to go where they want, but not able to stay where they want because they come under constant attack and ambush from the guerrillas. But here we have a situation where the attack itself, or the at least the scouting, the reconnaissance, the initial um, moves into the area are being repulsed at some considerable cost. Now, from what I've understood, Israel has more than a division here. They have thousands of men, and so I think if they decide they're going to go in big numbers, that would leave Hezbollah the option of having a big battle here, which I don't know that they would want to do, or letting them come and then trying to break them down in the mountains, which is probably what a guerrilla force would do. Once again, I'm surprised that the fighting has gone on so long. And the other thing that I was expecting, because you can see Beirut is along the coast. So there's a whole coastal road which they could take, which is more analogous to what they did in Gaza, not so much what they did when they invaded Lebanon in 1982, but they could try to rush up the coast, bypass the mountains entirely, And maybe that is what they'll do. Maybe they're probing in the center here, and and they'll end up making their big push along the coast. I don't know. So something there's something I'm missing in terms of why they have not been able to advance past that point. And I'm sure they're feeling more opposition, especially in terms of being mute, in terms of the mutuality of bombardment at the border and the difficulty mustering at the border, as well as the preparation of ambushes once they're actually there. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to show you, just along the lines of this topographical discussion. Just a few other relief maps. Like here's a relief map um, that shows Lebanon. And the idea is there's basically two mountain ranges and a valley in between. And that's the reality of Lebanon for an invader. Here's another panoramic map. And this is a pretty good one, as it really shows you the valley and the two mountain ranges. So they could this is another thing. They could try to come down from Golan, but I guess they want to take the valley, but if they have to take the hills around the valley to take the valley, it's a challenge. It's a challenging landscape for an invader. It favors the defender. Beirut, of course, is exposed, and again, the coastal path is exposed. But this is not green for no reason. The forested, I mean, the coastal path is much more forested, and there's probably lots of cover, lots of opportunities for ambush there as well. When you look at the big arrows of their invasion from 1982, they went there. It's like three arrows. Let's see if I can pull that up for you. But again, just to show you here, Mount Lebanon, anti-Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, Mount Hermon. But like basically, there's two stretches of mountain and a valley in between, and a coastal and some coastal towns in Beirut. So that's the geography that they're facing. And right at the border, there's some hills that they want, and they want to kind of go from hilltop to hilltop. The whole vision of Zionism is taking Arab lands one hilltop at a time. And so it's no surprise that if their long-term dream is of settler colonialism in Lebanon. Here's the idea of like a biblical reconstruction. But again, Bekaa Valley, Lebanon mountains, Mount Hermon, two big mountain ranges, and Beirut is on the other side of one, Damascus is on the other side of the other. So what's happening is right on the border, they're trying to go up these hills, and Hezbollah's stopping them over and over again. So, like I said, with the numbers that they have, I don't I don't think that they can I don't think that Hezbollah can contest this invasion forever. I think at some point they're going to have to let them through, and then the guerrilla war begins in a different phase. But this the repulsion of these attacks has gone on for a bit and at considerable cost to the Israelis. So they're either going to have to commit to a bigger attack, or they're going to have to try another route, or both, or call it off. But I really don't think they're going to call it off. So they have other axes that they can try to approach, or they can just try to go much bigger than they've gone. The issue of an armored push is they don't seem to have much of an answer for the anti-tank guided missiles that Hezbollah has. So they were destroying them before the ground invasion, right? They've been destroying Israeli tanks all year, and they started putting cameras on the missiles so you could see the missile approaching the tank. Last point about this is just that this border that you've been looking at is also was host to billions and billions and billions of dollars of Israeli surveillance equipment, technical equipment that was giving them vast amounts of information and raw data from which to forge their targeting and analysis and algorithms and artificial intelligence. And the from October 8th of 2023, so for a whole year, Hezbollah has been destroying all of this equipment. And I think in terms of the intelligence war, that has paid dividends for them during this phase, in the past 5, 6 days of Israeli attempted invasion, that they've had these difficulties. Of course, they also got the drop on Hezbollah in many ways in Beirut, and we've talked about the depravity of the pager attack and the ability to assassinate the high command. They got something there. Answers seem to be emerging slowly, but it doesn't seem to translate in terms of their ability to invade their. I mean, this could all be a feint. It could be trying to get Hezbollah to devote a lot of resources to that part of the battlefield, only to go and attack somewhere else. The thing is, my understanding of Hezbollah is that they're not exactly organized in a way where they would transfer a whole bunch of men to that front and leave other fronts unprotected. I think they're fairly adept at zone defense. They have fronts that are territorially based. So the people that are defending these villages right now are people from these villages or very nearby. And so there's reserves, but I don't even imagine that that's where they're not going to commit those reserves until something very big happens. So let's see how it evolves. I imagine the Israelis are going to have to do some change, either a quantitative change of sending many more men along this axis or attacking along a different line. I think that concludes what I wanted to say about this particular mystery, which was giving me some intellectual difficulty. Let me talk about Iran a little bit, just a little bit, because what I've seen, you guys may have seen, there's like little bits of circumstantial evidence. There's some kind of, oh, I don't think I talked to you about the Ayatollah's speech. So the Ayatollah led Friday prayers. I don't know. Did you guys watch this? I mean, it looked like one of the biggest gatherings of human beings that I've ever seen. The mosque, this was some kind of outdoor mosque that I had never seen before either. And it was immense. And the proportions of the event, the scale of the event and the size of the event was just massive, just immense, the immensity of that. And then the speech that the Ayatollah made, the way that he talked about Nasrallah, um, and the way that he talked about the war with Israel and the US. And he said, and he talked in Arabic, as I'm sure many of you know by now. He switched to Arabic and he said, now I'm going to address the Palestinian and Lebanese people. And he said, the Israelis are the enemy of the Palestinian people, the Lebanese people, the Egyptian people, the Syrian people. So he included a number of nations and he said their strategy is different for each country. But when they defeat one country, they move on to the next. So this is something that I, this is some kind of understanding that I was waiting to hear from the Axis leadership, that they are starting to understand the way that Israel has transformed itself and the way that the West has transformed itself, the way that the Hannibal Doctrine has been institutionalized, the way that the genocidal fever, the way that the like structurality of lying, the centrality of lying to everyone about everything, all of these things have become so central to what Israel and what the West in general are. And it seems to me that the Axis, led especially by Nasrallah, was committed to trying to impose rationality on Israel. So ignore the craziest of their outbursts and just focus on the deterrence equation, focus on the behaviorism of when they hit us, we hit them. When they expand, we expand, so that they gradually kind of understand on a behavioral basis that they can kind of be trained into rational responses. That I think that was the logic of what Hezbollah was doing under Nasrallah. And I don't know whether Iran is trying to now take that up because the so-called escalation ladder has been kind of kicked over by Israel. They went up a whole bunch of notches to a whole other level of terrorism and genocide against Lebanon, expanding the whole thing to Lebanon and murdering Nasrallah and killing all these commanders in the Pager attack. So now Iran is the only one that can try to, that has the resources now to match potentially the destruction that Israel's meting out, because that when they talk about an equation, that's what they mean, right? An equation is what's on one side of the equal sign is the same as what's on the other side of the equal sign. And so the deterrence equation means if Israel destroys a whole bunch of Lebanon, Hezbollah has the ability to destroy a whole bunch of Israel. And we haven't seen that. We've seen a very gradual expansion of targets. We've seen very measured expansion of targets, but like that promised destruction of Tel Aviv didn't happen. And that was promised by Nasrallah in 2012, right? And so it seems like Israel has said, if you want to destroy Tel Aviv, you destroy Tel Aviv. We don't care because we're going to destroy everything anyway. We're going to kill out all leaders. We're going to destroy hospitals. We're going to do all the things that we do. And if there's a cost associated with it in lives, etc., so be it. And so now we had Iran follow that up with their attack, which I broke down on the 3rd of October in my previous sitrep. And now Israel's going to hit Iran. And then Iran's going to hit Israel back again. And Iran has said that our next, if Israel makes a mistake, we will just target their infrastructure. And, people like Mohammed Morandi have said the next one will be much harder, maybe 1,000 missiles instead of 200. And Iranian military officers have pointed out what they would like to hit in that attack: all the power plants, the oil processing facilities, basically electrical the electrification of Israel. Israel would be de-electrified if Iran has a successful attack and according to what they've threatened. Should Israel now go? And the other thing is Iranians have also threatened to expand the war, as have Iraqis and others, where they've said, if you attack our oil facilities, then there's no oil for anybody. We're going to destroy oil facilities of all of the US allies in the region. Now, that's a big move, and I don't know whether that's, I don't want to say a bluff, but I don't know whether they're threatening something that they wouldn't necessarily do to try to, what's the word, communicate the gravity of the situation. But they probably do have the capacity to do that. The oil facilities of the Gulf are not defensible. They're not defended like Israel's missile defenses, which Iran has penetrated anyway. But Israel appears to be like what I've seen is things like Israel. I've seen Iran, an earthquake in the Iranian desert, maybe a nuclear test. I've seen Israel trying to move additional missile defense trucks to platforms to Dimona, to their nuclear facility. I've seen Iran signaling that they know that Israel's doing that. So things are moving into place in a way that you wouldn't see if nothing was going to happen. And almost every time we've thought nothing was going to happen, it's happened. So like the Rafah invasion, the Lebanon invasion, the destruction of Beirut, the assassination of all these leaders. Now, the idea that Israel or the US is going to stop short of a war with Iran now, I don't see it. Israel is extended. They're fighting in the West Bank, Gaza, North Gaza, South Gaza, and Central Gaza, and they're trying to invade Lebanon. They're having a hard time invading Lebanon. So it's it's a very dynamic situation. The US, the bombing of Iran, I don't think people should have any illusions. When Israel bombs Iran, that's the US bombing Iran. Israel can't fight Iran. Israel is 9 million people, maybe less, currently close to fully mobilized because they're fighting Gaza and Lebanon and occupying part of Syria and um, taking missiles and drones from Iraq and Yemen every other day. So the idea that they're going to now go to war with Iran, which has 90 million people or something, and a huge industry and industrial and scientific and technical base and mountains and massive territories and is far, um, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous idea. So it's and anything you see about how the US is trying to restrain Israel, offering Israel things to restrain them is nonsense. Please don't believe any of that stuff. Please don't fall for any of that stuff. It's garbage. The US is preparing to attack Iran, and Iran is going to respond by launching another major attack of missiles on Israel. These two things are almost like foreordained. I don't see anything that can happen on the horizon that could stop them. After that, who knows? And as for the Lebanon front, I think, like I said, it's not a sign. It's not a sign. It's not a good sign for Israel that they haven't managed to move beyond Marun al-Ras yet, but it's not when they do manage to move beyond Marun al-Ras, that won't be a sign that they're winning the war by any means. It is going to be, it is an inevitable step in the war that they will get deeper than they currently are. Indeed, it's, um, if from the Hezbollah perspective, your goal is to demilitarize Israel, as we've been saying, to use the the immense military assets that Hezbollah still has to try to destroy Israel's military capacity and Israel's capacity to wreak genocide and horror on all of its neighbors forever. If Hezbollah wants to contribute to reducing Israel's military capacity to do those things, possibly the only way to do it, or maybe the best way to do it, is on Lebanese soil if Israel invades as they're invading. So, for which they would have to go deeper than they have gone now. So we'll see. Um, we will see where things go in the coming days. Why I said that several times in this sit rep is so that nobody gets depressed if Israel manages to break through past these three towns that are where it is currently stuck and has been for the past 5, 6 days. Okay, that's it for tonight. I'm going to stop there. There will be plenty more to say over the coming days and more events coming fast and furious. So hang in there. While we're here on YouTube, I'll keep telling you to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.